More than 10 years after the ending of The Sopranos, the show's creator put together a prequel film, The Many Saints of Newark, telling the story of Tony Soprano's mentor, Dickie Moltisanti, featuring Tony Soprano actor James Gandolfini's own son, Michael Gandolfini, as a young Tony Soprano. Fans had been waiting like patients on a monument for new Sopranos content. Anticipation was high, but after watching the film, the Sopranos community collectively felt like they'd been stabbed in the heart. I love Chase like a brother-in-law, but he fucked me in the ass. Uneven pacing, uncharacteristic fan service and callbacks, omitting some of our favourite characters, the bizarre depiction of Silvio, a heavy emphasis on a new character Harold, a timeline that did not seem to line up with the show, and just lacking that Sopranos vibe and feel are just some of the issues the film had, causing dysentery among our ranks. Total debacle. And I know what you're thinking, I can't have this conversation again. But how about we take 10 minutes today and discuss one fatal flaw the movie had? How about that? How about that? I'm going to say a few things. I'm going to say some bad words, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And really, the only thing I have to say is that I think, even with all of its flaws, with how much the movie annoyed the fan base, I still think it could have worked. All of the issues could have been ironed out if one change was made, and that is, if The Many Saints of Newark was a TV show, not a movie. The movie even feels like an uneven Frankenstein's monster that had scenes cut out or chopped up like there was more envisioned for it. A limited series run even. It wouldn't have to do the entire 13 episodes of a Sopranos season. Because that way, honestly, I think the more damaging parts of the movie would be easier to swallow if spread over the course of a season of television. Take Junior Soprano saying, "Your sister's cunt," twice. Something I found really annoying, especially the first time he does it, because you don't even hear what he's saying it in response to. It's just a lame callback for the sake of it. He says it once in the show, and it's such a random thing to say, which is what makes it funny. He says it twice in the film, which makes it seem like this is a Junior catchphrase. Again, it wouldn't have stung so hard if we heard it twice over the course of 13 hours. Take this character Harold. He annoyed fans because of two reasons. They saw his storyline as woke or progressivism, and he took up too much screen time in a crowded movie. If the movie was a show, problem solved. All of a sudden, an hour of Harold becomes one episode of a show instead of half a movie. And The Sopranos has always had quote-unquote woke tendencies anyway. Half the time the show is taking the piss out of the characters' conservative attitudes. But I would argue that everything fans hate about the movie, all the hokiness, clunkiness, the weird depiction of characters, the absence of others, all of it, and this is perhaps a bold claim, but pretty much everything we hate about the movie is already in the show. The only major differences are two. One, that the issues are spread over an 86 episode series instead of clogged up in a 2-hour film. And the other is that the so-called issues are such an established element of the show that there's no Sopranos fan that would want them changed, or enough time has passed that we aren't as don-ho about hating the issues as maybe we once were. Take Livia's floating head, for example. They could go back and George Lucas that, make it right. But is there anyone who actually wants that? The weirdness, the pointlessness of Livia's last scene is essential viewing. It's something we can get together and talk about. You're not a true Sopranos fan unless you've seen that scene. Removing those kind of quirks from the show would sanitize it, and it would ultimately ruin what made the show great. Of course, that's notwithstanding some changes the movie made which you could argue were intentional. For example, Tony's dad in The Sopranos flashbacks had charisma and charm, but in the movie he comes off as a grunt, a typical John Bernthal character. This could be the movie showing the reality of what Tony's father was, with Tony's rose-tinted glasses removed, or this could be me giving the movie too much credit. In any case, the film left too much of a bad taste in Sopranos fans' mouths for people to give the movie some leeway or some critical thought, but I wanted to do a rundown of some of the more dorkier elements of The Sopranos, some of which are things that were in the film. I want you to think about some of these examples I'm going to talk about, and how you would honestly feel if they came about in a show you were watching now in real time that wasn't already considered one of the greatest shows ever made. Here we go, memory lane. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more Sopranos videos. You can support the channel via Patreon or by becoming a channel member. channel memberships. Another fucking money-making machine. So first of all, there's a character called Pussy. His nickname is straight up Pussy, and mothers even use the term in front of their children. Disgusting. Yes, I know it's in reference to his cat burglar days, but that's not what's going to be on anyone's mind, nor was it on yours when you first watched the show. Not to mention, this character calls Tony Skipper, or Skip, and in a plotline where he faces a moral quandary over his loyalty, his FBI handler's name is Skip, which is way too in your face. CGI Livia, whatever happened there. The twin thing the movie did, which threw a lot of people off, where Ray Liotta's character dies but then he returns as his twin brother, was also done in The Sopranos, when big-mouthed Philly is taken out, but David Chase thought the actor was so great they brought him back as his twin Patsy, even giving him a plotline where he grieves over his dead brother. Again, we don't really see a problem with this because it's spaced out. Spoons is taken out in season 2, but Patsy is only properly introduced in the next season. Not to mention, the show had 2 other instances of the same actors playing twins, like Carmela's neighbour, who had a scene where the twins talk, and there's no wide shot because it's pretty obvious that it's the same person. Actors also portray different people. Adriana's actress was a random hostess early on, and the most egregious example is Vito Spadafori's actor showing up in a speaking role as Gino in season 1, and yet plays a completely different fat fuck starting from season 2. Tony comes to the realization that his best friend is a rat because a talking fish tells him in a dream. Silvio Dante is simply a caricature. The actor is over the top and hammy, and there was pretty much no way for the actor portraying him in the movie to get the character right. It's a lose-lose situation. If he plays it straight, people would complain that the character doesn't resemble a young Silvio. If he does Silvio's mannerisms, people would complain, and they did, that it's like watching an SNL sketch, but that's pretty much what Steven Van Zandt's portrayal is. But it's because it's a fully ingrained, established element of the show that was there from the beginning that we sit still and take it. Think of it this way. Imagine there was no Silvio in The Sopranos, and then the character shows up in season 5 or 6. Do you really think us viewers wouldn't go, what the hell is this supposed to be? It's like a parody. There are multiple black characters in the show who have storylines, some dedicated ones like Massive Genius, Reverend James Jr., Jamal Ginsburg, and that cop who gives Tony a ticket. Plus, there's a fair bit of dialogue, especially during the HUD scam episode, about the Newark riots, about how these characters were alive when it happened and they experienced it. The point I'm making is that many fans complained that David Chase wanted to make a Newark riots movie and slapped on a Sopranos sticker to get the movie greenlit, and that the movie went woke by focusing heavily on the black character Harold. But the African American DNA and the Newark riots connection was always part of the connective tissue of the show. So what's the difference? The difference is that in the film it takes up a huge amount of the movie. Essentially, Harold is the second main character, whereas in the show, these plots are spread throughout the course of around 86 hours. There's a lot of repeated storylines in the show, or plot points used to drive the narrative. As I talked about in another video, in many ways, Richie Aprile and Ralph Cifaretto are the same character. And then you have the constant motif of wise guys coming out of the can, and don't get me started on the amount of car accidents there are in the show. These writers were less creative than Spielberg. There's that bizarre Star Wars slow motion wipe transition in cold cuts. A lot of the hits are ridiculous. Tony pulls a gun out of a fish, Vito appears out of thin air to whack Jackie Jr. with a toy gun. The mayor of Munchkinland isn't suspicious when he's in the middle of a mob war and 2 Italians block his drive and start asking him questions. Even during one of the most important scenes in the show's history, the whacking of the rat, Fabi Petrulio, who is all alert, looking for danger, and Tony materializes like a ninja out of nowhere. And then consider how easily they get away with hits in the show. Chrissy and Paulie killing the waiter, Big Puss killing the Elvis impersonator when Skip was right there when the guy spotted Puss. He'd know Puss would have a reason to kill him, so surely the quote-unquote husky accomplice was involved. There's a lot of times realism is thrown aside to make way for story moments or even comedy, like when Paulie and Silvio, 2 high-up maid guys, take AJ, a middle school boy, to his prom. Tony beats up Mikey Pamlice, a maid guy, right-hand man of Junior, and severely disabled with a case of fuckface-itis, and nothing is made of it. Yet, a few seasons later, when Tony punches Ralph, it's suddenly a big thing and a major storyline. Gigi's sudden health problem and blowing a gasket is a blatant writing contrivance to make way for Tony having to pick Ralph as the new capo of the April crew. They couldn't fucking sell it. The premiere of season 3, just for context, this is now after 2 seasons of the show being a smash hit cultural phenomenon. And when the 3rd season of the show starts, we get something of a silly spy caper satire with the FBI trying to plant bugs in Tony's home, and the Sopranos are side characters in their own show. Again, nobody cares, it was a really fun episode. But the reason we don't care is because it was just 1 episode in a 13 episode season. You can do weird stuff like that in a TV show, you can't do it in a 2-hour movie. The depiction of American football and soccer were ridiculous, like AJ becoming a hero after nabbing 1 fumble. That animal blundetto is dropped into the show out of nowhere, and the series furiously tries to retroactively convince us that he and Tony Uncle Johnny had a close relationship growing up, even though he isn't mentioned for 4 seasons of the show. And the show can't seem to decide on whether he's a genius with a high IQ or a moron, or simply whatever the plot needs him to be at any given time. And he's just one character. There's 4 fucking families we never see in the show, and we've got this pygmy thing in Jersey. Amid serious tensions between New York and New Jersey, we deviate from the main plot with a wacky test dream, not to mention how long Tony's coma dream goes on for in season 6A. During a fair few episodes, Vito becomes the main character of the show, and his plotline contains all sorts of ridiculous things, like the handlebar-tashed Harley-riding Jim falling for this oval-shaped parade float. They fuck anybody and everybody over there. There's some Goodfellas callbacks that are just a bit weird, like Paulie repeating his joke, or Albert constantly repeating things. I don't see any reason for this aside from riffing off the classic Jimmy Two Times scene in Goodfellas. Not to mention all the Goodfellas actors in season 1, the characters talking about the film, a Martin Scorsese lookalike showing up, which is supposed to be Scorsese. It just feels like it's so in love with the film. It would be like the Many Saints of Newark coming out and constantly having references to Road to Perdition or something, and throwing in loads of actors from the film into it. Muscles Marina gets beaten up by a 350-pound whale who's a couple of months away from coming out of a coma and recovering from a gunshot wound. There are storylines in the show, and this is for those who feel Harold's storyline has no ending, that don't seem to end. Whatever happened to Catherine Romano, the strong silent type? Furio straight up disappeared. The storyline, it petered out. Died on the vine. The guy, he moved or something. Melfi becomes a drunk, and then within 3 episodes that plot is dropped. It's sad when storylines go young like that. Jackie Jr. is practically an underling in the mob, shadowing Richie April, and then in season 3, it's like they reset the character and he's a guy trying to do well in college. Timeline got fucked up. And I'm not even including any of the weird shenanigans of the pilot, like Calm confronting Meadow with an AK-47. The point I'm making is that The Sopranos is full of weird stuff, but it's part of the charm. These things that stick out are like part of the furniture. They don't offend fans, for whom the series is a comfort show. The movie has all of these issues as well, but aside from it being something new that we have to adjust to, it amplifies all of the annoyances because they're crammed into a single 2-hour movie. I seriously believe the movie could have worked, even with all of its flaws, if it had time to breathe and was a show, or even a season. It did have positives, the depiction of young Tony and young Livia, for example, and that would still be possible to do now, given the age of the actors. But alas, it looks like any sequel or spin-off to the movie is dead. Hey, at least The Sopranos will endure, and so it goes on this thing of ours. Thanks for watching.